Your business strategy can change, or perhaps you are changing your business processes, or maybe even you are acquiring another business. And each time change happens, it impacts your technical, functional, and even your end users. So for PeopleSoft, change is not just constant, it is actually inevitable.
Hello, friends. I'm Jeff Miller from ERPA, and you're listening to The Possibility Perspective, the show where we talk to strategic-minded PeopleSoft customers who partner with ERPA for a better PeopleSoft experience. I'm Jeff Miller from ERPA. Welcome to all of you. Today is all about change management, version control, compliance, and modernization. And we're pleased to be joined today by ERPA's partner, Phire. And now on to the table of contents, or today's topics. We have a lot in store for you today. The welcome and introductions, well, I'm doing that right now. On the right-hand side, you're going to see a list of our world-class presenters, John, Ganesh, and Shawn, who will each in turn be presenting today. John's going to cover change and challenges for PeopleSoft customers. Ganesh is going to do a Phire demo and the capabilities of Phire demonstrated in a few use cases. And then Shawn is going to wrap it up with what's next in your PeopleSoft roadmap, thinking about where those use cases and change management may really come in handy. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Shawn, my ERPA colleague, who's going to frame our discussion before turning it over to our first presenter, John. Welcome, Shawn.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. You may likely know who we are, but just to be sure, I just want to point out that ERPA was founded in 1999 as a PeopleSoft consulting firm. Our mission then, and still, is just to enable our clients and partners to get more out of their PeopleSoft stack. So 25 years later, here we are. We're a managed service provider, a boutique managed service provider specializing in ERP modernization, both SaaS, cloud, but PeopleSoft is in our DNA, and it always will be. We run our own proprietary orchestration layer that accelerates PeopleSoft deployment, modernization, and management. And when it comes to PeopleSoft, I think it's important to note that we support customer initiatives from tactical to literally transformational. So on the one end, it might be, 9.2 upgrades, fluid implementations, all the way to replatforming PeopleSoft in the cloud for a SaaS-like experience and everything in between. With that in mind, one of the things I feel that we've done really well over the past 2 decades is identify best of breed partners. To not only do we use their tech, we get really excited about how our partners and our technology can enable our customers to have a much better PeopleSoft experience. And that's why we're here today. So today we're going to get a little bit closer to the tactical end of that spectrum. And for 2 reasons, right? We're going to talk about application change management, version control, and compliance. And really, again, for 2 very important reasons. Number one is some of the best practices that we're going to share with you today, you could implement today and benefit from tomorrow, right? So very actual real-time benefit can be derived from what we'll share with you today. Number 2 is that if you want to move more to that transformational end of the spectrum, these are critical best practices and foundational building blocks that you have to have in place in order to enable that. So really excited about having our partner Phire here with us today. With that, I will turn things over to John.
Hello, my name is John Han, and I'm the chief designer of the Phire application. So there's an old saying that you may have heard, the only thing constant is change. You probably know firsthand how true the statement is as you implement and support PeopleSoft. Now, there are many internal and external drivers for change. One of the major drivers of change for PeopleSoft is technology. When I first started working with PeopleSoft way back in the early 1990s, PeopleSoft was based on the client-server architecture. A few years later, there was a switch to the PeopleSoft Internet architecture. And then came the move towards mobile and cloud computing. And now you see this next big technology shift towards artificial intelligence. The second major driver for change is government. I happen to live right outside Washington, D.C., and you probably heard that there are many changes happening in D.C. these days. Government is constantly changing existing regulations, They're creating new regulations, or perhaps they might even deregulate nowadays. And of course, there are constant changes to the tax laws. Another major driver for change is your business. Your business strategy can change, or perhaps you are changing your business processes, or maybe even you are acquiring another business. All of these drivers require changes to be made to PeopleSoft. And each time change happens, it impacts your technical, functional, and even your end users. So for PeopleSoft, change is not just constant, it is actually inevitable. The next slide shows the challenges these changes impose. Well, you need to implement and enforce effective change controls, such as testing and approvals. Now, once these controls are in place, you need to be able to report on the effectiveness of these controls. For the development process, you need to have code versioning and good code promotion process in place to prevent data loss of like development work and to enable rollback of code changes to production and shorten the time to deploy these technical changes. Lastly, you need to be able to automate these task assignments, enable efficient communications, and be able to audit and have visibility into all the change activities. Now, the next slide is going to show you why Phire exists. Phire exists to help you meet these challenges. What is Phire? Phire is an application change management solution that helps organizations track and manage the changes that are necessary for PeopleSoft. Now, Phire is very unique in that it is built on the same technical architecture as PeopleSoft, which means that Phire is easy to deploy, easy to support, and easy to use. Phire has a workflow-driven change request tracking capabilities and provides for versioning and migration of PeopleTools code. The Phire application has been around since 2007, and we have over 400 customers in many industries, including higher education, healthcare, public, and private sectors. In the next slide, I'm going to actually walk you through a short use case to really drive home how Phire can help you when you're implementing a major change to your PeopleSoft application. Let's take an example. You decide to embark on a cloud modernization on AWS using ERPA as the managed service provider. This major change will present some new challenges because now you will have many different teams and organizations involved in managing PeopleSoft. Phire has built-in features to enable those efficient communications between the various players. With the workflow and task routing features, you'll be able to facilitate the assignment of various tasks, such as who's going to do the development, who's doing the testing, the approvals, who's going to actually do the migration of the code into production, and so forth. You also need to make sure to implement segregation of duties. There are a lot of security reasons, and so Phire has built-in features to prevent developers from being able to make changes, let's say, directly in production, while allowing them to have read access to the code that is in production. Lastly, Phire is going to enable you to track and audit all the change activities that occur so that you will be able to report on what change was made, when the change was performed, and who was responsible for making that change. So this use case that I just went through really quick, really short, should really provide a good overview of some of the benefits that Phire application can provide to PeopleSoft customers. Now I'll turn it over to Ganesh, who's going to do a demonstration of some of the features of the Phire application.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. And thank you for this. And thank you for also coming up with Phire. Like most of the folks I'm guessing in this call, there were multiple hats in PeopleSoft as a developer, as an admin, but we all can agree that the SDLC lifecycle is not streamlined. And with Phire, I introduced to Phire in 2013, so around 12 years of experience with Phire. You'll have your SDLC streamlined workflows properly navigated to each roles. Everything is audited. It's almost like, to give an analogy, it's like if you're driving a car, moving from stick shift to an automatic car. You have to do everything manually before. Now everything is done by Phire. With that, I'll provide a quick recap of what I'm planning to present as part of this agenda. I'm assuming the Phire change management itself might be something new for folks. So I'll give a brief overview of Phire setup, and I will try my best to present 3 use cases. One is a standard migration. Everybody knows right now if I have to have a standard migration, developer develops those code in development database. He'll request migration to a test. And then admin, he will also log on to app designer and he will move to test. And then they talk to each other. Did you compare? Did you set the flags and so on? And then eventually we have to get an approval. And the approval from the manager pretty much will be either in an email or in a Jira ticket. And then finally the migrator moves it and he moves it through app designer. And then developer, he doesn't know. Most of them, they don't have access to production, so he doesn't know if it went through or not. And the second use case I will present is sometimes you have to run an emergency script in production. For example, you ran a job. The underlying processes went to success, but the job itself stayed in processing state. I see that is one of the most used cases. So with that, somebody gives a SQL, a DB or a PS admin has to run it, but you have to have approvals. Again, those approvals will be either on a Jira or an email. And finally, I want to present version control and how Phire helps with this in version control. Before I go on to the online page, quickly, in a typical work atmosphere, you will have multiple users doing different roles. So what I am presenting right now is a quick summary of the users that we are using for this demo purpose. We'll start with David, who will be developer, and Tammy would be our tester. And is somebody like a manager and the approver. Sam is the actual PS admin who will do the migrators. And we also have a role for Diana, who pretty much has a PeopleSoft security admin. Meaning, if let's say if we provided new roles or security, again, it gets recorded outside of the system. And finally, we have a user, John. We rarely use them, but Phire administrator will have access to all of them, including setting workload in different stages. With that, I'll shift to the demo. As John mentioned, this Phire is built on People Tools. So you would see an environment similar to People Tools. Now, this version is version 20.1 using 8.61, and it is set in Fluid. As you guys can see, everything is set to the Fluid home pages. And Phire itself will provide a lot of customized pages. And as you can see, there are different aspects of home pages that you can use. And one of the aspects that I really like and we extensively use if a client is issue tracking. Anytime there's an incident, we create an issue and that issue automatically generates a change request for us. So if somebody asks if in auditing, if it comes out that where is the change request coming from, it's based on this issue and the issue is tracked. Sometimes we track the issues in Jira or Salesforce, but this is an option that can be used. Before that, I'll quickly show you a few things here. So with that, what I wanted to show was the role level security. So basically, as John mentioned, segregation of duties is something that is paramount for a proper SDLC, meaning the developer cannot be approver and the approver cannot develop code, and both of them cannot migrate it, and the migrator cannot touch any of the objects as a director, right? So all of that is provided in this solution. So in this case, I am providing a basic change request. What this change request is, somebody created new roles in PeopleSoft. So we'll say new roles in PeopleSoft. This is how your change request screen will look like. Once you hit save, it automatically generates you a change request number. And in the task, you would see this workflow, and you will also see the different databases that it's going to touch. So since David is our developer, his job is to make sure he adds all the objects to the CR and he makes sure the development portion is complete. And he has to create what we call a migration set. Migration set is any set that has the actual code. Needless to say, there are multiple migration requests that can be created. And then he will request a migration to test. That will complete the roles for David. I will show you once we get there how the system will make sure this is a gated processes, meaning once the ball is in migrator's code, there is not much David can do at this stage. So that way, system will make sure people are properly corralled or segregated in their lanes. So with that, for this purposes of demo, I would provide some basic little tools. We have already created some projects, we call it demo roles. As you can see right now, what's happening is Phire has its own database. It is now connected to CS development database, and it fetched all the projects in the database, and I'm able to select one project, and I can do a quick import. When I do a quick import, it imported all those objects to my change request. Now, at this stage, these two are created in development. Now I have these copies in Phire database. Now, once I have this, which means that I completed development, I added objects to the CR. As a developer, I'll mark this as complete. I'm still in development database. Now, once I have this, I have to create a migration set. A migration set is, think of it as a folder that has all of your objects. This is the task item for all the things that you do. I will create a migration set. I will call it baseline level 1. My database ID is development database, and it is migratable for me. So I click OK. So now it created a change migration set for me. One other thing I wanted to show here is, as you guys can see, you see the statement called locked here. What it is these objects are locked. That's one way of doing version controlling. And it helps us making sure that one common problem we had with PeopleSoft is if multiple developers work on the same object, they still can work in development database, but this object is locked and only this version of it can move across. At this stage, if somebody changes this role, adding new provision lists or so on, this will still be the old copy. Until we get the new copy, we are good there. So once this is done, I am going to request a change to migration. I will have a migration notes. This is a streamlined way of making sure developers and administrators talk to each other instead of over the phone or emails. I would say standard migration, yet no freeze. And if I require a restart, and I will say it is a security change, and I require server restart, I'll hit save. And I have my notes. Creating a migration package is as easy as simply clicking it. I'll quickly show the source information. The source information is the baseline version that I created. And I can request a backup, which means that for the next environment, first Phire is going to take a backup and then it's going to build. And I'm going to hit save. It is warning me at this stage that all your tasks are complete. It is going to go to the next row and this will make it read-only. I click yes and I save it. As you guys can see, everything is gated now. So I cannot make any changes. And if I try to add more objects to it, as you can see, this is greater. So it made sure that I will not tamper this because already it's moved enough. So at this stage, the task of David is complete. And since it's at a migrator stage, we'll move on to a migrator. And in my exercise, my migrator is Sam. I will log on to a Sam. As you can see in his my change request and inbox, it popped up. Clearly, you can just click it here. And then once he is here, you will see that, okay, there is a migration request. You quickly go to migration notes. It's a standard migration with no builds. So he goes to migration and he simply clicks. The next environment is CS test. it takes a baseline backup and it hits migrate. Boom, complete. So if I go back to my task set, it says, okay, my request migration is complete, migrate to test is complete. At this stage, even migrator, his role is complete. The system automatically sends an email to the next people. As you guys can see, this is set to a role, meaning every user that's in the role will get assigned that task. So at this stage, Sam's job is also done. And my tester is Tammy. I'll log on as Tammy. So now that we are here, Tammy comes here. She has to perform system testing. And she can attach at this stage documents. I created a simple test. What it is just for the purposes, I will just add a note called testers mode, testing pass with criteria provided. But in the actual testing, we are assuming that they will include screenshots and any other documentation that they have to provide. I will upload it. So now the tester has completed their task. Okay, and I marked it as pass. And now tester's job is also complete. Now this is sitting with an approver stage. So the approver is typically your managers or somebody you assign as managers. So in my example, my approver is Anne. I will now log on as Anne. I will come here. I would say this is approved. And so my approval is recorded here. Okay, moving on. Then it will go back to Sam. Sam has to make sure he compares. And the way he does is it's a simple behavior. So objects, where he does a compare. He wants to compare version set with production, making sure everything is good. It provides everything clearly. And if it's different, it provides you all this. And some of you might remember this screen, similar to your compare reports that you use during upgrades or any home fixes. And once this is done, I go back to my task. I have to complete migration to production and do a standard migration to production. Okay, hit migrate. Okay. And my migration is complete. And the last part here is apply security production. So one other aspect that we sometimes miss is, let's say you have some role changes. PeopleSoft security admin records those role changes, but it's recorded outside. With this example, we have Diana as one of our security admins. Diana goes and completes the online PeopleSoft security changes, but she comes here and she records her approval, saying that it is complete. And now it's back to developer. So this completes a use case of a standard migration. I want to quickly go back and show another use case where you have to run a SQL in production. So for that, I want to quickly create an issue. I'll create an issue saying reset job status, right? And I hit submit. It created an issue for me. As you guys can see, issue clearly have a change request. And I can automatically create a change request. And once it's in the change request, I change this into emergency migration. And in emergency migration, all I have to do is add a SQL script. It changes this. Sorry, I have to add a script here. It's a SQL script. I'll quickly show what my SQL script is. Some of you might have seen it. It basically updates the process request table, setting the status to distributed to posted and run status to completed. All attached in this script. Okay, spin over. Yeah. Okay. So again, if you guys recall, what happens typically in the SQL script, developer writes a SQL script, we have tons of communication going over the emails, but here everything gets streamlined. Apologies, I have to go back. I created an emergency migration where I have to do script only. I will share this. And 24 is what I have to work with. I do this again. Anytime. Fine. So if I go back in my task, my development is complete. I've added script to the CR and I have to execute in test to make sure it works. And the way I do is the developer can themselves do it. If I want, I can keep it in a rollback status and I can see history on how it executes. And Phire typically does not need any comments. I wanted to make sure, we'll save this and open it. All right. It will make sure this is how the it builds the thing, right? So quickly to wrap this up, this is my last thing I can present. I have to again execute it and I have to commit it this time. And I go back to my task. This is complete. Somebody has to approve in production and that would be our resource on. So I'm logged into the system. Right now it actually records in the system. Really, I have to check. I tested verificated. Let me check with Diana. They're not happy with that. So in this case, I'm logging with another user. No, it's there. Sorry, or this one there. This one compared a bit. And I approve it. And migrated executes this in production. I think I went slightly over with what I wanted to show. At this stage, I'll take a pause.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ganesh. And thank you, John. I love this. And I love your analogy of it's like having a car and moving from a manual transmission to an automatic, right? There are definitely benefits to be derived there. And it goes so much deeper. There are other things. It could be climate control. It could be cruise control. And that's what we're trying to give you a glimpse of today. Some of the many things that you can do tactically to really streamline your PeopleSoft operations today. So on the next slide, I'm going to share with you where we see our customers going in terms of their PeopleSoft roadmap. And the first one there is really, it's all about maximize, right? There's PeopleSoft works for us. We're invested, we're committed, we're likely going to keep it for the foreseeable future. And so if that's the case, then what are the things that we can do tactically to ensure that we're maximizing our investment in PeopleSoft? And you can see a list there on the right, some of the common things we see our customers doing. I'm not going to go through those again, but by far and above, in my view, probably one of the most important is exactly what we've talked about today, right? It's the application change management, the version control, and the compliance. Start here for sure. The second bucket that we see our customers falling into is really modernize, right? They're saying, again, committed to PeopleSoft, but we want just the application, right? We want PeopleSoft to operate in the cloud, SaaS-like, where we're leveraging the application to do all the things that we'd like to do. And then you just make it work. And so we help our clients achieve that SaaS experience with PeopleSoft. And another area where we see a lot of our customers moving to is where they're saying, look, we just want to modernize, right? That third path might be, maybe it's PeopleSoft on-prem modernized, maybe it's PeopleSoft in the cloud modernized, maybe it's adopting some SaaS platform like Workday, and ultimately a hybrid of both. So we definitely have some use cases I can share with you around customers that have modernized PeopleSoft on AWS for a SaaS-like experience and adopted specific Workday modules around it to complement. So there's a broad spectrum, but I think the key to that is let's just have a conversation. So if we could forward to the last slide, Ganesh, if it's available, it's really One of our engagement methodologies is just the art of the possible. And that is really just about having a conversation. So whether you're trying to build a better PeopleSoft on-prem today, whether you're hoping to move to a more SaaS-like experience, or whether you're looking for Agile Cloud-enabled IT ops, wherever you fit along that spectrum is fine. I think as you saw today, whatever that next step is in your journey, we're excited about getting engaged and getting deep. Art of the possible is just, let's have a conversation, right? Describe to us what you're doing and why, and we will definitely help you achieve that. I think it's probably safe to say between the more than 50 years of combined experience between ERPA and Phire, that whatever it is that you're wrestling with, we've probably helped someone else overcome that. Again, thank you for your time today. Very, very happy about your participation here, and thrilled, John and Ganesh. I wish we had more time. I'd love to go deep. Really appreciate your time. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Awesome, Shawn. Thank you. John, Ganesh, thank you so much. You guys did a phenomenal job. That's it for now. You can contact ERPA here on this slide. Lots of information there on getting in touch with us. In the meantime, thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Possibility Perspective. If you'd like to talk to ERPA about what's next in your PeopleSoft journey, be sure to visit erpa.com.